Hello, Stroke Warrior friends and family everywhere. This is Ralph Cortez again with Stroke Warrior Radio's Survivor Interviews. Today's guest brings a wisdom, wit, and a wonderful sense of purpose. Today's guest is Simon Payne. Hi, Simon. How are you?
Hi, Ralph. It's a massive pleasure to be with you this evening. It's
That
evening in
is
the
to
UK,
have
not
you.
in America, but thank you for the invite. And I am only too pleased to share my story and share any inspirations or hope I can give to people.
Okay.
Uh, so, shall I start with a little bit of an introduction to my background?
Yeah, why don't we do a few minutes of that? Go ahead.
Okay, a very quick potted history of Simon Payne. So, I started off at a very young age as a chauffeur, and driving and cars were my absolute pleasure, my guilty pleasure. So I worked as a chauffeur in the middle of London for a number of years for a well-known family, confectionery family in the UK. And I was really lucky to learn an awful lot from that company and from those people in terms of self-belief and being an entrepreneur. So I wanted always to have my own business. And to be fair, that may have been the course of my stroke, if I'm honest. So I went through a career of being a driver educational specialist, a driving instructor, an examiner working for the government, the UK government, to do driving tests. I then did a master's degree in driving psychology, and also then set up a business that would deliver training to bus drivers in London. So my company, Tangerine Transport Solutions, became the largest provider of qualification-based training for all of the London bus drivers and all of the UK bus drivers.
Wow.
So again, hugely successful. And I, as you might find out in our future discussions, I'm a complete tart when it comes to being on stage. I love being on stage, love being in front of a class of people. And I love people generally. I like training, I like my voice. And that's one blessing that I've had since my stroke, that I can still put four words together. So my background has been in people, in driving, and psychology. And that's been a massive, massive benefit to me in terms of understanding what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it, and also creating my own model of recovery for other people to use. So I had my stroke in November 2015, so we're nearly 10 years ago now, after working 100 hours a week in my business. And I was massively fortunate, but I love my job. You almost like too much of a good thing, really.
Yeah.
So over a number of years, I have now established that there's lots of things that I can do that I know that I can condense into a model and a theory of development that I don't think is out there at the moment. So when I had my stroke, I never had a conversation with an OT that said, this is what you can do, this is how you're going to get better over the next so many years. And we know that stroke recovery is a very long process, or it feels a very long process when you're inside it. But my idea now is about we can accelerate that recovery by doing certain things. So in my current book that I'm writing that isn't published yet, but will be soon, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's about changing your lifestyle decisions and your choices on a daily basis. And if you follow almost like a scaffolding of lifestyle choices and behaviors, you become much more familiar with what you should be doing on a regular basis. Your body remembers things that it then has almost like erased through the stroke. My own opinion, having a stroke is almost like having your muscle memory erased.
Yeah.
But if you then
Well,
go back to remembering and doing things constantly and repetitively, like we know neuroplasticity works, and it's not just about trying to get the other side of your brain to kick in, it's about reminding the stuff that was there to still play.
come
As
back. Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we get into the basis for where you've gotten, where you came from, and where you've gotten with all your
Okay,
ideas. So take
so
us back to the day your stroke happened.
okay, I can let's tell you exactly that day. So my job involved me training driving instructors, bus instructors, to teach drivers not to crash, to get them to a standard to pass the British UK bus license acquisition test. So I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning, leaving for work very early, and driving down from what would be North London to another South London location, which could be 100 miles possibly. So I was doing it every morning and then driving back in the evening. So on this particular Friday evening, I had done a whole week of instructor training, and I'd had a massive nosebleed on the Friday afternoon, thinking, well, that's not good, and thought kind of no more of it. But it was high blood pressure. It was blood pressure that caused it. So I'd kind of, oh, that's not good. So I had a white shirt on like I've got now and covered myself in blood. But then I drove home, the 100 miles back home. And I hadn't even thought that it may be an issue. But luckily, Ralph, I managed to reach home. I sat on the sofa at home in front of the TV with a cup of tea that my wife got me. And I sat there for a while thinking, something's not quite right. Don't feel good. And interestingly, we had a black cat at the time, beautiful thing called Jackson. And Jackson come and sat on my lap and rubbed his head against my stroke side. So we know that animals are super sensitive to certain things.
Yeah.
So Jackson come and sat on my lap, rubbed his head against my face, almost like telling me something's wrong here, Dad. What's happening? And I said, oh, Jackson, get off me. Get your bum out of my face. So anyway, so that was the first kind of hint of something happening. And then I didn't feel great. I then said to my wife, or I thought I'd said to my wife, I think I'm having a stroke. And she said afterwards, I didn't say that at all, but in my head I had. But the consequence was that I'd had, because of blood pressure and a variety of different reasons, I had a blood clot in the top temporal lobe of my brain. And I had the full thrombosis, thrombolysis, craniectomy, cranioplasty, the full works, had a whole new titanium head. And I'm pleased to say 10 years later that I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I'm still fighting fit like a warrior should be. So yeah, no, I'm
How did how did you respond emotionally in those early days in recovery? I mean,
well,
being a
Ralph.
workaholic and, being a driver and, the physically and emotionally, how did that affect you?
Okay. Well, I think I'm probably not alone in thinking that your immediate thought is, oh God, it's ended, life's over for me, because you are just really unsure of what's going to happen next. And a stroke experience is an incredibly scary experience because you're out of control. You don't know what you're doing, what's going on. You're not really concentrating. You can't speak properly. And it is, as I said earlier, a little bit like, excuse me, like a grenade going off in your kitchen. But everything you knew before is in a different place. Whether you're thinking straight or whether you can stand or walk, get into the bathroom, everything changes and you lose control of your body and of yourself. So
Right.
you tend to lose your identity, especially if you can't speak or communicate correctly. And I am a bit of a tart. I like cars, I like people, I like clothes. And one thing I'd noticed when I first had my stroke, the immediate thing was to make things easy. Wear t-shirts, wear tracky bottoms, running shorts, and make things easy for yourself. Don't have buttons. But now, stubbornly, as you can see tonight, I'm wearing a shirt with buttons. So I stubbornly always put a shirt on. I always button up a shirt because I can.
Yeah.
And it's one of my massive things now is that everything I do is part of my recovery process. Whether that be learning to be patient, learning to think about what my hand's doing, using this affected side to hold things still, whether it be cleaning my teeth with my affected side, just by holding one side and pulling backwards and forwards. And as you can see, I've still got some effects. I still get fatigue. I still
Yes.
have various effects, but then that's what it is. I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. I am recovering on a daily, constant, hourly basis now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's those little victories every day that add up to the big ones.
Completely. Really, and,
Yeah,
and it's that belief system that is going to help everybody get better quicker.
exactly. Were there particular deficits or physical challenges you had to overcome?
Indeed, yeah. The first 2 weeks of my stroke, I couldn't speak at all. So I had aphasia and totally lost my words. Even now, I have to think for a couple of seconds first to make
Yes.
sure that I can see the word in front of me. Then I read the word in front of me. So it's kind of using a different part of the brain, like the visual cortex of my brain, to see the word first and then say it. So it's an interesting thing that if you can learn to use a different part of your brain to do various things, you can trigger responses that we never knew we had before.
Yeah.
And for me, I was a runner. I used to run half marathons and play golf on 3 days of the week because I could. I had my own business and I could take time off when I wanted to.
Right.
And I was really fortunate. The surgeon that saved my life said to me, "It's really good that you're a fit man, but had you not been that fit, you might have had a really different outcome." So thank the Lord that I was fit generally at the time, but I had a bit of a ticking time bomb blood pressure issue that I really wasn't that aware of, or I denied it. I wasn't really that aware of it. So I would urge anybody listening to this now that if you're in doubt, if you think there may be some issues, don't be scared of going to someone to seek advice. And I'm sure you've said that 1,000 times yourself, but it's really key that as men, we need to be thinking about ourselves and our health and not deny the fact that we're fallible and we are only human.
Yeah.
We are physical
Yeah.
beings. We get sick sometimes. We have to take
Well,
care of ourselves.
and we define ourselves with our work, I think. That,
Totally.
and we need to start defining ourselves as human beings and recognize what's going on with ourselves.
There's a really good phrase I've stumbled across the last couple of days that we need to be human beings, not human doings. Because
Love it.
we all do stuff to make ourselves feel better and to boost our ego up. But actually, if you put that to the side and think about whether your ego is playing up with you and just do it because it's good for you and appropriate, then you are going to be a better person to be with and to surviving whatever happens to you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in an interesting situation because you're on NHS, right? The
I am
National
indeed.
Health Service.
Indeed.
Did you have access to rehab and therapy, and how did that go?
I was really lucky because I now live in the southeast of England, which is a whole different NHS trust because we have kind of sections of the NHS what are called trusts.
Right.
So at the time I was in Luton and Dunstable, which is kind of North London, Bedfordshire area in England, and it was the L&D or Luton and Bedfordshire NHS Trust, and they operate differently to where I am now. But in both locations, it was really, really good, first-class surgeons that know their stuff. So yes, I was really lucky that even though I had my own business and I had the money, I could pay for it.
Good.
I didn't have to because the NHS helped me. And I will be eternally grateful for that because they are wonderful here. And you may know now that the NHS in the UK are struggling a little bit, only because of the way that it's run and because it's funding. But you and I, Ralph, know that throwing money at something isn't the answer. So my whole new campaign now, Ralph, is for globally, the new future of healthcare is self-care.
Like that.
So if we look after ourselves, we don't need a health service.
Yeah. Yeah. Then they'll have to
Okay,
figure out something else.
Yeah, we might cut our finger occasionally or hit ourselves with a hammer, but you know what? We can be a bit more careful as human beings. We can change that. Interestingly, Ralph, my psychology background is about human error, and humans are incredibly error prone. We make mistakes all the time. That's the way we are. We are still knuckle dragging occasionally in the earth. That's the way we are. But we are getting better slowly. We are sending people to the moon slowly. We're getting there. But it's an interesting dichotomy that humans are massively clever, but sometimes quite silly and quite non-intuitive and not bright. That's a polite way of saying it.
Right. Looking back, what was your most unexpected obstacle you faced?
Well, I can share a very personal story with you that at the time of my stroke, my wife at that point, my second wife, couldn't cope with living with a disabled man. And I'm lovely, what can I say? But at the time I was a changed person. So because of my background, because of the job I had, I was earning good money, I had a career, and I was a complete tart, ego-driven, nice cars, nice holidays, big house, lovely suits, all that rubbish. But I now know is just not going to make you happy, but that's what it is. But unfortunately, at the time, my wife, that all stopped because of my stroke. I had to close the business, and I then started not earning as much money. So sadly, 10 years ago, my wife at the time just couldn't cope with having a husband who had a stroke, which is
Sorry
a
to hear
shame.
that.
And I feel massively sorry for her having to go through that, because on the night of my stroke, she was told to say her last goodbyes. And on that night, in Addenbrooke Hospital in Cambridge in the UK, fantastic hospital, great surgeons. They told my wife that it could be touch and go now because it's really severe. And so in the morning after my stroke, when I'd come to a little bit, she said it would have been easier had you have died, because that would have been the end of my worry. And she didn't mean that she wanted me to die. It's just how it felt to her at the time. It was agony having to wait for me to possibly recover. And I have a good relationship with her now. I still see her on a regular basis. So we're okay. We're reconciled. So that's good. But I have a new partner that's gone a different way now. So that's all good. And I'm back to, I've got my own mojo back now again, Ralph. I'm feeling quite positive and quite successful in my recovery. And I think anybody can. We're all powerful beings. We've all got the ability to recover. As long as we flick the right switches in our brain and our body, we can get better.
The whole road to recovery is mental, physical, and emotional. What daily routines or practices helped you progress?
Okay, so I am lucky enough to be able to read and absorb information really quickly. I have a massively good memory. So having that memory has helped me learn lots of good things. So I have a philosophy, like the wave thing we spoke about earlier, that you do one good thing, one success every single day. And there's a philosophy in Japan called Kaizen. And Kaizen was operated by Toyota, the car manufacturer. Basically, they were saying that if you can make one improvement, every incremental improvements all the time, so every single day you do something different, and you keep doing that differently every single day for the next 365 days, you have got 365 changes in a year. So if you think about that in terms of your recovery, if you can do 365 changes every day, throughout every year throughout your recovery, that's massive.
Yeah, we've done over 3,000 so far each.
Completely right. And my nutrition, my exercise regime, my meditation, my whole way of being has changed massively. And my understanding of self, my understanding of recovery and health services and medicine. Because again, another thing that I wasn't told at the start of my stroke about food and nutrition being a massively important part of recovery.
Yes.
I consider myself now to be an amateur chef, a very amateur chef. But I love to cook. I love to know about what the ingredients can do. And you have a guy in America, a guy called William Lee, and he's a doctor about nutrition, and he wrote the book Eat to Beat Disease. And I love this guy, and he's come up with all sorts of things about what certain products and ingredients can do for your body. In terms of dark chocolate, can create stem cells from your bone marrow. Even things like nitric oxide. So when you produce nitric oxide from the food that you eat, it oxygenates your blood system. And if you've got oxygen going around the blood system lots and lots and lots, then of course you are dropping off oxygen stem cells to the injured part of your brain into your body. And the more that happens, the quicker you're going to recover from the injury.
Huh.
But nobody said that to me at the start of my stroke. This is what you can do. Yeah. And it's only by following people like Joe Dispenza and William Lee that I've kind of put them together and thought, well, that'll work. And I've tried all sorts of silly things to see what could happen. One of the things is my sleep routine and my meditation, a massively important part of my daily routine. Again, I'm not trying to evangelize certain things, but if you have a routine that you can believe will work for you, it will work. Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right.
Very true statement. I've heard that before.
Massively true statement. So sorry, Ralph.
Go ahead.
So my if you like, my message to stroke survivors worldwide is that this is not the end of the road for you. You just need to find a way to make the road a little bit flatter and keep walking in a straight line to where you're going.
How did you stay motivated through the setbacks?
Love of self, I think, Ralph, is an easy way to say.
It's
Um,
and
I,
it's
I, I am massively
not
lucky.
ego driven, right?
I'm not at all ego driven now, but I was when I was working
Yeah,
fast
that's
cars,
why I'm
motorcycles, all
curious.
that stuff.
That's why I asked because you said before you were ego driven. Now it's love of self. What was that transition like?
It was an epiphany in slow motion. It without question. It was a massive change transition for me. So interesting. My wife that couldn't cope with me said I was Simon 2.0, and that's a really nice title to have, to Simon 2.0, and I am. Maybe I'm 2.0 plus now.
Okay.
But you know what? And I've said this a few times to people, and they look at me in a strange way, that this stroke feels very strangely like a bit of a gift. And it's not a gift, it's a pain in the arse, if I'm honest. However,
Yeah,
it's what it is. And you deal with what you have in front of you, and you will get better, and you can overcome anything. It's all in there and all in there.
yeah, definitely heart and soul. Was there
Without
a
question.
low point where you questioned your direction and what got you out of that low point?
A very interesting question. Yes, I've had very dark moments. I've looked at train tracks. I've looked at windows because I live on the fourth floor of an apartment block. So sometimes I look out the window and think it'll be over like that if I want it to be. But I
Yeah,
don't want to. I have so much to live for, so much to give, and so much to have in my life. I have two wonderful adult sons I see regularly. They live in a different part of the UK, but they are both very successful, and that keeps me awake, keeps me alive, and I'm doing everything for me and for them and for my wonderful partner I have in my life now. Lucy, she is wonderful. So when I had my business, as the training director at the time, was lucky enough to win a contract to train all 25,000 bus drivers in London for the Olympic 2012 Games.
oh,
Uh,
very
so,
cool.
so what the company did was we educated drivers to be good customer-facing people and to be very aware of terrorism threats with bombs and with various things like that. So, and as you can see, I like to talk. And my happy place was in front of a classroom full of people. And I'm getting back into that now. Like doing with you this radio podcast now, it is a way of me getting back into where I was before. And I think that's one thing that's kept me going is hope. That I have the ability to see the future, that I will be playing golf on my 18 handicap again. I will be driving again. I will be doing things that I love to do. And I never stop visualizing that. And I
Very,
think that's a really important part to keep in your mind if you can, because we have sadly, as humans, we have this internal dialogue, but it can be a wonderful tool to use, or it can be a bit of a menace. So like the devil and the angel on your shoulders.
yeah,
So if you listen to internal dialogue and it's telling you bad things, change its voice and change its words. So in my book, I talk about becoming your own best coach.
cool.
So as an example for that, uh, very stupidly, I knocked a glass off the side the other day and shattered it onto the kitchen floor. And my potential reaction is,
Yeah,
but I did. I said, Simon, you're such a silly boy. What are you doing? And it was kind of changing your internal dialogue to not berate yourself and actually
all
say, we know
right.
what, next time, perhaps look before you leap.
Yeah,
So
that
if you imagine, and I know that Tiger Woods went through a period of some mental issues with his own thought processes while playing golf.
right.
And I know that he changed his internal dialogue to think about what Tiger could do better. And I've used that myself in my own journey, that Simon, the internal Simon, now sounds like Morgan Freeman, the Godfella. So Morgan Freeman and I have a wonderful relationship in my head. And it's that kind of Simon. Don't be doing that again. Do it this way next time. Perhaps you can think differently. And it's a really important skill and a really important element of self-support.
You make yourself your own recovery tool.
I think so. I think that's a really valuable thing to have. Like, trust yourself and believe in yourself.
I like that. How long did it take you to, and did you seek out other stroke survivors? And when you found other stroke survivors, did it make your recovery better?
It did. Because one thing I do is a volunteer for the UK Stroke Association, which allows me to go into hospitals to see stroke survivors in stroke wards. So just recently in Kent, we have acute stroke ward. They've just opened and spent millions of pounds doing it up. And it's been a really lovely, wonderful thing to be able to share and to talk to people and to give them some hope. So one thing that I've discovered now, and I knew this at the start, that helping others is a really good help for yourself. And I always try not to evangelize about my own story because that people are different.
Right.
I just have the mindset that I have a lot of self-belief. And I'm really, really lucky to have that.
Yeah.
But it's something I've had to develop over years.
What role, or I should say, I'll jump to advocacy and education.
Okay.
What inspired you to start the YouTube channel Stroke Smarts? That's STROKESMARTZ 24/7.
Yeah, so the stroke smart 24/7 is a kind of play on words that stroke can hurt for all day, can't it? Stroke smart, smarting is hurting. So stroke smarts has a Z on the end of the smarts because the smart part had gone before the smarts had already gone. So I had to
Right.
be creative and use Z to make the sound. So why did I start it? Simply because as a writer, getting published, self-publishing is really expensive. And now that I'm in this situation, I've got to be very careful about my budget. So one of the things I will be doing in the next couple of months is looking for collaborators, I suppose you'd call it, just to try to then maybe publish this book in something perhaps we can talk about later on, is how we
Yeah.
can get out the messages out there. So one of the things, the YouTube channel, and it's a fledgling start at the moment. There's only a couple of things on there now, but as we go forward, such as today has given me the motivation to get it more out there. And so what I'm doing is on the channel, I am using each of the chapters of my book to give some information. And I kind of realized that I have better access to these people because I, as a stroke survivor, prefer to watch videos and YouTube videos because it's an easier way of digesting the information.
Right.
So if that's the case for me, that's going to be the same for other stroke survivors too. So I thought rather than sticking a book out there, why not stick it on YouTube free of charge? Then everybody can click on a button and watch it. So I
Get
have
a higher
I've
percentage of listeners.
so it's the same with you with your radio show. It's the same thing. You're getting messages out there that people listen to on a regular basis and give them inspiration and motivation. And you are using your skill set as a talker and as a thinker to influence others to feel better. And it's a really important thing about when you've gone through trauma yourself. I think in story writing, there's something called hero's journey. And I would never think of myself as a hero. But there is a way of writing stories that have hero's journey. So you've got to start somewhere and you have to convert that trauma into something good.
I find it rewarding, and I not taking credit, but a lot of the people that I've interviewed are doing more social media now. They're doing their own podcasts. They're doing, there's a whole lot of things that we can influence that whole pyramid of recovery for new stroke
Absolutely.
survivors.
And it's
And
globally.
I think you're doing it too. So it's great. What topics do you focus on for fellow stroke and TBI survivors?
Okay, so I will send this to you by email so you can share it with lots of other people. So I
Good.
have a pyramid of stroke survival. So the first step in the pyramid is getting to know your stroke. So when you have a stroke, it's like having an uninvited guest come into your house and then almost like an elephant in your kitchen, let's say. And you're then having to step around it and negotiate it and do certain things differently that you wouldn't have done before. So one of the things that I tell a lot of my clients that I deal with at the hospitals, and it's only a few now, fortunately, because I've now stopped doing that voluntarily. I do it as a kind of on the YouTube channel now. So one of the major things for me is about getting to know your stroke and what caused it, firstly, but also what the consequences are. So one of the consequences that I have from my stroke is that I have epilepsy caused by my brain injury. It's controlled by drugs, but those drugs make you incredibly fatigued, which is a worse thing for a stroke survivor. You're already tired anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm on tablets that stop me having seizures. But I never had that conversation with anybody at the time.
Right.
So it's almost like I've had to find these things out almost by accident later on in the event. So a lot of what I do now is about understanding the situation and then prevention in the future.
We didn't know what we didn't know, right?
Absolutely, yes. It's the Peter principle, isn't it? You don't know what you don't know.
Yep. Yep. What kind of feedback have you received from your viewers?
So at the moment, because it's such a fledgling event at the moment, so early, I think I've only got probably 7 or 8 subscribers at the moment. It's so small.
Okay.
But you know what? You've got to start somewhere, haven't you? And one of the things that I have experienced, even from some of the guys in the hospitals that I speak to, I'll go to various like stroke association meetings, and I'll just talk at the audience about my own experiences, and they all say that's a great idea. You've got to keep doing that. It's really good. So I'm honoured and humbled by people's response, in as much that it feels like it's a good thing to do, that people need that information. Like all of us, when we go through a change in our life, we want to make sure we have a lifeboat to grab onto. And that's one of the reasons why I started writing the book. It was my therapy and my lifeboat. It was my way of putting down into words what I thought as a memory, and I kind of look back. Even doing the YouTube channel, I can look at previous videos of myself and compare my speed of thought and speed of speech.
Yeah.
So I can say, when I was really slurred there, I didn't say the right words there. I didn't say what I meant. And I'm an Essex boy. I tend to speak very quickly, as you can see. So, and as a trainer, my job is to make sure I leave some space between the language to let it land. And as a radio presenter, you know that. Obviously, I'm telling you to suck eggs, but it's ultimately that you learn about things about doing them, firstly. And if you don't, I mean, one of my philosophies is that you do as much as you can until you can't do any more, and then you do one more. And you just keep adding and adding and adding and adding.
Yeah.
And it is surprising how quickly that builds up over the week.
Yeah. Do you plan to expand your content in any kind of new directions?
I thought about going to because I love driving. I was thinking about going to driving and try to help people get back to driving in terms of the channel. So that's one thing that I will probably do is try to educate people how they can get their driving head back, as it were.
Right.
Because that's been my passion for 30 plus years now, because I'm 60 now. So I'm now in a position of wisdom that I can use what I've learned to give that to other people sensibly, I suppose you'd call it.
Do you think there's a direction maybe for stroke survivors that can't drive? Maybe they can be taught to drive again?
Definitely, yes.
Okay.
As long as, I mean, one thing that I had was my left neglect. So the left side of my field of vision is affected by blurredness.
Mm-hmm.
But I've found that if you watch the TV in a mirror, it stimulates the other side of your occipital lobe.
Wow.
So you know mirror therapy, you know that hand mirror
Yeah,
therapy.
yeah. From
So it's
Dr. Moynihan.
the same principle. So if you like watching sport on TV, watch the TV with a mirror to the side of it on your affected side. So mine is on the left.
Right.
So if you're watching it
Wow.
from the left side, you are stimulating that part of the brain. And again, I've not done the research on this, so at the moment it's kind of anecdotal, but it works, I believe, for me. And I think it's something that could be tried in terms of thinking differently.
Bet Dr. Moynihan would have some pointers on that.
I think hopefully, yeah, Ken could do a lot with that,
Yeah, I think you could.
Absolutely.
You're active on Instagram and LinkedIn. How have these uh, platforms supported your mission?
Again, early stages because I've only kind
Right.
of just tipped my toe in the water at the moment, but I get followers on a regular basis. People like to see me, and as I said in the very first video I ever did on TikTok, that I wish someone had done what I did earlier.
Yeah.
And it's something that for me, not only is it good for me as a recoverer, as a survivor, but I think it's also about letting other people know they're not alone. And that
Absolutely.
comparison of self to others is a really helpful thing. And again, for me, watching back some of the videos I did in the very early stages, even things like having my hair cut, wearing a decent shirt, whatever, is a way of getting my identity back. And it's a way of self-love, self-care. And I experienced that horrible feeling of not liking myself. Almost,
Yeah,
almost as much of thinking, well, why isn't my body doing what it should do now? But actually, my body's saved my life. I'm okay. I'm still here. And you know what?
excellent phrase.
And it's good. It's getting better every day.
Yeah. Tell me the three top things that you learned about yourself that surprised you.
Resilience and ego. Resilience in as much that it's not a switch, it's a process. So if you ever was in the army or any kind of services, you would be told to become more resilient and more hardy and grow a pair, I suppose would be a term. So become more resilient, but you can't just become resilient like that. It takes a process. So again, in my book, I've started to mention about how do you build resilience? How do you start to be constantly trying to get recovered and get better? And it's hard work. But that hard work is good hard work. It's there for a reason. So I think one thing that I learned to love about myself, and this is not ego driven, it's just a fact that I am very positive. I have that mindset of positivity that helps Simon all the time. And Simon now is a better person now than I was before. And
Great.
maybe that's a placebo effect, I suppose, that I like myself more than I ever did.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
I think that I could probably spend hours and hours and hours thinking of other stuff, but I won't.
Well, let's get into helping new survivors. What would you say to someone who just had a stroke or TBI and feels completely lost?
So I've been there. I've been lost. I think my immediate reaction is, it's fine. You're going to be okay. And just a few words of comfort to say, this is not the end. This is just the start of a new chapter. This is just a capital letter in a new line of information. You can get over this. You can recover what you had before. Yes, we know you can't maybe get 100% back. You won't be running a marathon next tomorrow, but you won't be necessarily the end of your life. And the big thing is being hopeful enough to know that this is not the end, and know that there is a process you can go through that can help you get better. But it's going to be a long process. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy journey, but it's going to be a really rewarding journey. You've mentioned that before about being rewarded.
Yeah.
A reward is a massive encouragement and a motivator. One of the things that I learned to do was to notice improvements. And one of the things I say in my LinkedIn account is success has nothing to do with luck. It has everything to do with the goals that you set yourself. So if you set yourself a goal, a single goal every day, whether it be walking 3 steps to the bathroom or just standing up for 15 seconds longer than you did yesterday, that's an improvement. Write it down somewhere, make a note. I was lucky enough as a trainer to be able to record myself in the classroom. So one of the things I did, I looked back at all my videos of me training instructors, which is a massive help because it reminded me of my voice.
Right.
I learned to speak again by just constantly remembering and listening to my own voice. And as you know, I like the sound of my own voice, so it's fine.
And you kind of mentioned it, but you journal, don't you?
I do, yes, absolutely, yes.
And you found that very important in the recovery process to look back and
Really, really do. So
yeah.
you have a guy in America, a guy called Hal Elrod, and I've read his book, which is called The Miracle Morning.
Okay.
And I really recommend that book as a starter for this because he come up with something called Savers. And Savers is about doing 6 things in the morning to start your day, which is why it's called The Miracle Morning.
Ooh.
So I don't know if you know the story of Hal. Hal had a massively severe accident in a car accident, head-on collision with a lorry. And his recovery was all about trying to find what do best and successful people do with their life and with their recovery. So he came up with something called Savers. And the S of Savers is silence. So when you wake up in the morning, you do 10 minutes of silence, which is like meditation and just breathing and thinking about yourself. So you start the day off productively just by doing 6 things, just 10 minutes each. It's like you have an hour in the morning to yourself. Again, it's self-love, it's self-care.
Yeah.
So
I
I would
love it.
recommend if you can buy the book, get Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Morning. It is a
What?
brilliant, life-changing book.
I'll check it out.
And
What
that's not
message?
sponsored by Hal at all. I have no interest in that book at all, but I recommend it as a thing to read.
Awesome. What message do you wish the world better understood about life after stroke?
That it's changeable, it's recoverable.
Love it. Perfect. Perfect answer. Just so simple, isn't it? And
Well,
I mean, the lack
Ralph,
of stuff they tell us, they make it more complicated than that.
I think so. As a cherry on the cake, I would say this glass ceiling that we seem to have above our heads as survivors is breakable. We can push through it. We can do more than they think we can do. We are wonderful, healable beings. The
Yep.
human body is designed to heal itself. Our job is just to flick the triggers.
Get to know you a little bit better. A couple quick questions. What's your
Yeah.
favorite music or song when you need a
Oh,
lift? When you need a
okay. So
lift.
I love Spyro Gyra.
Oh, okay. Cool
So
one.
so Spyro Gyra Morning Dance is my funeral song. Are you going to play it? Will you play it for me, Ralph?
I will. I'll find it and upload it and get it as your intro or extra.
It is something else. Spyro Gyra Morning Dance. It is really uplifting.
Morning dove. Okay. A hidden superpower that you didn't know you had.
Patience.
I learned that too after my stroke. It's like it shocked me that I've got this patience now that I never had.
And I was a driving instructor. I had to be patient.
Yeah, and you weren't,
But
were you?
I've learned that space between activity is a really good thing. And
Yeah.
it's learning to love the silence, learning to love the space between things.
What's a book or quote that changed your perspective on life?
Joe Dispenza, think greater than you feel.
Okay. Something most people don't know about life after stroke.
It can actually be quite fun, and it can be an opportunity filled experience that you would never had before. you would do things that you didn't think were possible. Ralph, you are the second radio show I've been on, and I've never done that before as a UK resident. But you know what? Life has wiggly turns and twists, and I truly believe that divine intervention, whatever it might be, whatever we want to believe, the universe, whatever you want to call him or her up there, the universe has a plan for us, but it's wiggly. It doesn't always go in a straight line. And sometimes we don't know what we've got planned for the future. But you know what? It may be really, really perfect for you at that time. Another wonderful quote I've heard recently is, delay isn't necessarily denial.
Sorry, repeat that.
So delay is not necessarily denial. So we have all been told in our youth to pray for something. And we desperately want it to happen. So we ask God, we ask whatever it is, we are desperate to pray for things. But the timing that happens with the universe is we are given what we need when we need it, not what we want.
Simon, you remind us all that being smart about stroke means being real about recovery and never giving up.
It's been a real pleasure, Ralph.
Check out Simon's work at Stroke Smarts 24/7. That's 24/7 and smarts with a Z and on YouTube. And you follow him on Instagram at Simon Payne 0217.
You got it.
Okay, and what about your LinkedIn address?
Forgive me, I'll have to send that to you by email, I think. Or if you've got it where you are, you can always put it on an email.
Yeah, I think it's, oh, I know what it is. The LinkedIn was Simon Payne MSC. MSC. Okay. Simon, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. And listeners, if your story sparks something in you, we want to hear about it. Book your interviews at calendly.com/Stroke Warrior Radio, because your journey can help another warrior find their way. Simon, thanks. You have a great day.
Ralph, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir. It's been great to speak to you. Hope to share some stuff with you soon. You take care.
Let's talk after this.
Much love, sir.